And the hot box is where you can change temperature and heat. So I bought 6 records, the O2 record that you'll see here, and I put them in at 97 degrees Fahrenheit, 97% humidity, and before I put them in the hot box, I took pictures and measurements, signal, sound, physical, and then after 6 months took the records out, analyzed them, had 6 different cleaning techniques, plus something I was working on, subjected the records to cleaning, put them back into the hot box for another 6 months with their sleeves and so on, took them out. It took 18 months, and I found that the cleaning processes that are out there do not clean records. In fact, they leave films on records, and the ultrasonic technologies that are out there or the mechanized systems that are there, whether they be vacuum or other, they also leave films. So unfortunately, or fortunately, we found that our process works. So we're going to first talk about how records are made, so you can say whether, at the end of this, whether this is real or live or Memorex, as they used to say in my days when you bought tape, whether anything that I say is right or wrong. So we're going to look at how records are made. We're going to talk about the current cleaning methods, and we're going to appreciate them, good or bad. We're going to give you generic information that you can make your own decisions when someone's going to be selling you something in 5 years from now or 2 days from now that's new. We're going to talk about some of the issues of cleaning solutions that even the government and Library of Congress have been using. And then there's a lot of information that I found out that I've been pressed on to discuss and prove. JR mentioned before his microscope, which is the cost of the car. To prove my findings 4 years ago to Michael Fremer, I had to buy a $170,000 microscope, which I'm still paying today. That it allowed me to prove what we're saying is true about records. And as a matter of fact, we just had a gentleman here, and he used to work the cutter, cutting records. So he validated also what we're saying here as to records, as to tone arm adjustment, and so on. So we're going to talk about, here we go, the records made, the cleaning tools, again, our disruptive technology that we're shaking the industry about, and then of course questions and answers. So it all starts with the records. So I'm part of the American Record Society of Collections, ARSC, and in 2018 we had a seminar session in Portland, and the ARSC regroups people from around the world that are librarians and custodians of music. They are custodians not only of vinyl, but wire recordings, not tape recordings, wire recordings from IBM. So at the conference, we also visited the Cascadian Record Company that presses records. Courtesy of the Cascadian Record Company, I have the biscuit, which we'll talk about, and the record that didn't pop out of the press. And this is a record before being cut, but we see a couple of problems with it. So we're going to talk about some of the things. So this is here the process of making records. So there's a section here. All of this up here is going from the studio and then making an aluminum disc or lacquer. We're not going to care about this section here. We're only interested from the PVC pellets to making the biscuit, using the stampers, and then coming out with a record for you to audition at home. Okay, so here we are. This is a picture of a press made in the 50s, the Hamilton Corporation. You can see some of the people like to dress it up with their own artwork and whatever. Everyone has a lot of fun in the record making business in the press. So this is the beast, and they have 8 of these. So what happens first is TPC is a company out of Taiwan. They're one of the #1 manufacturers of PVC pellets. They're actually, they start off white, and then we use carbon content, as they call it, as the lubricant, which makes less friction when we've actually pressed the record. But we also add stabilizers, we add plasticizers, we add liquefiers also in this, either pre-mixed or manually mixed, and everything ends up in a hopper. So there's our hopper. And then through the hopper, and of course color pellets do a lot of other things. Mm-hmm. And here we have someone that's just tossed, colored pellets on the press, on the mother, before the biscuit gets flattened. And so we go from the hopper down the line, going from here, from right to left. There's a conveyor, and then we make this biscuit. So this is what comes out. It's hot, and it's just basically now ready to be pressed into a vinyl record. So here we go. We now have a stamper. That's on the bottom over here. The label falls onto the stamper. So labels are pre-printed. They're not glued onto the record. So it falls onto the stamper. The biscuit then falls onto the label with the stamper. And then another label top falls onto the hot biscuit. And they're all centered because there's a pin. Then the top section of the stamper comes down, and then with heat and also with pressure, the record then is pressed. And here we can see where by applying pressure, the temperature of the record goes up very high, 140 degrees Celsius, and you now have this excess plastic that comes out, which you can see here. There we go. So once that happens, then the record basically starts to spin. And there's the record being pressed. And here we have a cutter that you see on the right hand side here. So now this is spinning, and now we're cutting off that excess plastic. And then we let this is very important, we now have to let the record cool a bit. Why is that? Have ever you bought a brand new record that is warped? That's because at the factory they did not let the record cool down enough before it pops out. It's not, mishandled. It wasn't UPS and was 150 degrees in the truck in Phoenix, Arizona, sitting in there. It's actually where they should take their time to let the